Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Hello and welcome to the Think Factory, where ideas ignite and innovation thrives. I'm Susan Kleiner from OGC Solutions, and I'm the host of today's episode. I'm really happy to have with me here today Teddy Gedamu. He's the founder and chief executive officer of Tenasol, a pioneering health tech company based in Washington, D.C. With a background in software development and a deep commitment to public sector innovation, Teddy has spent over 6 years building AI-powered solutions that transform how healthcare data is processed and utilized. Under his leadership, Tenasol has partnered with federal agencies and health plans to tackle some of the most complex challenges in health data interoperability and analytics. Teddy is known for his strategic vision, technical acumen, and passion for creating purpose-built tools that serve real-world needs. His work reflects a blend of entrepreneurial grit and a mission-driven approach to improving health outcomes through smarter data solutions. Welcome, Teddy.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. So tell me a little bit, what is Tenasol? And I know there's an interesting story about where the name came from.
Yes. So I'll answer the second question first. So the name Tenasol, my family, they immigrated here from Ethiopia back in the 70s, and in their language, the word tena means health. And so it's really just putting health with soul for solutions, health solutions. We're really here to solve problems in healthcare, and that's where the name came from. What is part of Tenasol is we're really focused on improving how clinical data is managed across the industry, which when you say that out loud, it sounds kind of crazy given how much this industry has invested in improving the state of healthcare data. But when you're on the front lines and you work with organizations, whether it's a health insurer, federal agencies, these people still feel the challenge of how to process what is probably the most complex data set of any industry. It's plagued with quality challenges. You can kind of go down the list. And, our mission and the reason why we launched this company is we saw those same problems still not being solved. And so about 2 years ago, we launched a platform. We're supporting, as I mentioned, federal agencies, but also several national health plans that use our solution for a variety of use cases. And we're intentionally sort of going to market very open in terms of the number of problems that we're trying to solve. We don't want to be just another point solution. And so, that's kind of us in a nutshell. We have a great team. I'd say our platform is the only thing better than our product is probably our team. And so that's why we've been as successful as we've been to this point.
Yes. So can you just explain a little bit, I know what is it, that you are trying to fix, and what inspired you to start? What was the problem that you were trying to solve?
So, as an entrepreneur, you're really in the business of problem solving at the end of the day. Ideally, it's a big problem. And ideally, it's a big problem that you're uniquely suited to address. And so that's really what inspired me to start the company, is this recognition, that health data is still in the kind of the state that it is. And we have tools today that enable us to really rapidly address some of these challenges. So kind of stepping back, how do we use AI? We use it at every step of the health data journey for the clients that we solve. So it starts with knowing what type of data to access, right? We use AI to kind of help identify where data exists for the use cases or the needs that a particular organization has. From there, it's how do you detect the type of information it is? In healthcare, we deal with probably 20 different formats, structures, a variety of structured and unstructured data, everything from images to PDFs. So that detection capability is something that we've automated. From there, it goes to processing and extracting information. We have a situation in healthcare where, over the last 12 to 15 years, we've rolled out electronic systems that are now capturing and digitizing more data than ever before. And so the volume of this information is growing, and it's outpacing the industry's ability to manually process it. And what happens today for so many of these use cases, that data is manually being reviewed or processed or ingested into maybe one of 4 or 5 different systems that an organization may have. And so that unified processing and extraction step is something we do for the entirety of your data. And then it's prioritizing, predicting, summarizing, you name it. We feel like at the end of the day, with the push of a button, you should be able to transform your data into whatever you need it to look like. So this concept of one record and multiple uses is something that is central to what we do. So AI for us is not one thing. It's not only generative AI. It's really a multimodal strategy where we use hundreds of trained algorithms to accomplish multiple different tasks and address multiple challenges for our clients.
So the issue here, I think it's interesting how you talk about how, there's so much more data than there used to be, right? In terms of medicine. I guess even I think about in the course of my lifetime, right? From like chicken scratch, on a folder to, what we have now, which I guess sometimes is, real-time dictation and reporting from doctors. So I imagine the issue is going to get bigger and bigger, and we need something like your product in order to make any of that useful. You agree?
Yeah, especially in light of, current trends in the industry, which I'm sure is something that we'll probably want to touch on, but there's a lot of downward pressure on reducing overall spend in healthcare. And AI and certain forms of automation could really be helpful in achieving those sort of cost reductions for the clients that we serve.
Excellent. So just so that I understand a little bit better and for our listeners, is there any kind of standout partnership that you could explain a little bit more about that would demonstrate, the impact of Tenasol and, of your product?
Yeah, I think one stands out for me. It's a national health plan. They're in almost every state in the country. We really kind of started working with them on what I would kind of characterize as a pretty small project. This company had no shortage of tools and technologies, and they really were struggling with ways to identify or ways to optimize. So we went back to the sort of the cost pressures, right? A lot of their operation is they have these manual review teams that are constantly reviewing data, and they were struggling with how to optimize that workforce, right? They can only spend so much on that program, and they needed better ways to prioritize the work that those teams did. That was the project that we worked on. At the end of it, it started as a pilot. But based on the success of that program, it spun into a multi-year engagement where we're not only have expanded our work with that team, but we've moved into other areas of the business where our product is not only helping with operational efficiency and cutting down review time, it's now also being used to improve the quality of care that their members receive, which in turn improves their bottom line, right? So we have this kind of trifecta of, workforce optimization, quality of care improvement, and bottom line sort of budget impact, which for us is success, right? And so that's what has propelled us and makes us even more, I'd say, just eager to replicate that across other clients as well.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like you're having a tremendous impact on the system, but when you get down to it, on individualized care, right?
Yes,
So
that's
that's got
exactly
to
right.
feel good. So you talked before a little bit about trends. I know you touched on it. I'm curious. Uh, we're always hearing more and more about AI. So I'm curious about what are the trends that you see with the future of health tech and this data interoperability?
Yeah, we really are in an era of AI everything,
AI everything. Yeah.
essentially, and that's no different in healthcare. I mean, I would say one of the trends that I think makes us really optimistic is less about AI and more on the health data front. Is where we've been on this march towards kind of this one size fits all approach to health data that really seems to be changing. And that's great for a lot of reasons. One is it's freeing up organizations to think about their own needs and not maybe wait on the whole industry to kind of get its act together, but focus on how do individual organizations solve their own problems. And as I mentioned, we've got to address cost in healthcare. There's so many opportunities for improvement. We can't wait for policies and standards. So that's one thing that's really, really encouraging. Um, I'd say the second thing, which is a little bit of a gift and a curse, is this kind of deregulatory environment that we're in around AI. As a small company, obviously it's great. You want to be free to kind of innovate, build new products, and that certainly helps in that aspect. But we all know that in healthcare, the penalty for error is high. And so, really, what this does is it shifts the burden of um, just really making sure you're enforcing transparency and you understand how these systems work to the buyer, right? Buyers, whether you're a health system, health plan, you need to be really focused on, the things that you care about, trust, ethics, compliance. These are all things that may not be regulated as tightly as they were in the past. And so that's just going to become even more important in the future. And then lastly, I'd say, and living in the Beltway area, certainly we've really felt a lot of the disruption in the federal space. But what we're now seeing is sort of organizations are starting to open up and say, hey, you know what? There's still problems that they need to solve, programs that need to be supported, and in some ways, the kind of the status quo and how the government engaged companies like ourselves is changing. And I think that if you look at it the right way, can open up a lot of opportunity to try to address challenges in the federal market, which may have been for a company at our scale and size, may have been a problem because there's so many barriers to getting to that point. But it's something that excites us after, obviously a lot of change and disruption in that space.
That's a really interesting way to look at it and an interesting trend. I know that you mentioned when I think of AI and AI issues, it's hard for me not to think about ethical considerations. And I mean, I know I hear a lot about that in my industry. How did you balance innovation and everything that you're doing with regulatory and also these ethical considerations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we're very, very intentional about how we use AI. AI is not one thing, right? There are a lot of strategies and technologies that kind of fall under that umbrella. But certain things that we avoid to ensure that we're striking that balance is, obviously we don't use it for certain use cases, things like denying benefits, for example, not a business that we get engaged in. We're also a company that prioritizes transparency in what we do in AI. So an example of that is, as we're engaging with new clients and going through implementations, we do multiple rounds of what I would call sort of testing and calibration where we're able to run data through our system, provide evidence for why the software is making the recommendation or giving the answer that it's given. And we engage our clients and pull them into the decision process to calibrate that. Because ultimately it comes down to risk tolerance, right? With AI. There are also some forms of AI that operate more as a black box. Large language models are a great example of that. So we're very judicious in where we apply that type of technology, because you need to be able to debug the system at the end of the day. And so if it's a black box and you don't know why the software is giving you that answer, you should probably be careful about where you're applying that technology. Obviously, healthcare is a regulated industry. Privacy, security, compliance are all, important aspects of how you have to operate. So in a lot of ways, you kind of don't have a choice. But anytime we use a model, it's our IP. We've trained it. We're not using public APIs. We're not sending data out to, pick your large language model. Everything's hosted within our environment, so we maintain those types of controls and that type of rigor around everything that we do.
That sounds like it's important to maintain that type of integrity. So I want to turn your attention really quickly. I mean, I know that you've worked so hard establishing this company. I'm curious, what have been some of your biggest leadership lessons since founding Tenasol?
There's probably a lot to choose from there, Susan, but I'd probably point to two things. You mentioned grit in your introduction. The one attribute that I hold in high regard, and anytime I talk to folks that want to go down a similar journey, so I've emphasized this, is the need for resilience. I mean, think about it. Just in this year alone, right? We've had consequential legislation impacting our industry. We are now facing a shutdown, which has all sorts of ripple effects. Every year there's going to be something new, right? Business goes up, it goes down, clients come, they go. You can never get too high or too low. And a big part of our success has been just never wavering on our North Star, or as we encounter challenges, you got to be able to dig deep, believe in yourself. I'd say that's probably the number one thing, right? And then the second thing is that I think is really important, and it's a big part of just something that's fundamental to our company, is everyone needs to have a stake in the success of our company. I've worked at companies big and small, where you're just not always sure whether what you put in, you're going to get something like that out of it at the end of the day. And I just believe that we need everyone rowing in the same direction. And so everyone needs to have some skin in the game. It's just something that we believe is the right thing to do. And so that's probably the second thing that I mentioned.
Wow. So I'm curious, what's next for Tenasol? What are you excited about?
I think 26 is going to be a year of growth. 2025 has, started off very, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think the picture is becoming more clear. And as a business, really, you just need clarity. Whatever the rules are, you just need to know what they are to operate. And so I think the fortunate thing, and I mentioned some of the trends in my earlier answer, AI is going to be central to every organization and how they operate in the future. Healthcare is no different. We're in a great place to be. And so I think it was really just kind of getting through a period of uncertainty this year, but we're just so excited about new opportunities in federal that we're seeing. We're excited from our current client base. And truthfully, Susan, we're as much as we've sort of been on this AI journey as a country for the last few years, I think we're at the very beginning in a lot of ways. This is going to be a long sort of trend that we're on, and I think we're just positioned really well to continue to add value to our clients, deliver value, and that's what excites me the most.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you have a hopeful outlook on all of that. I guess as an entrepreneur, talking about your grit and resilience, you really have to. So we ask everyone who appears on the Think Factory this one question, which is, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? I would say the one thing that keeps me up at night is that while there's so much promise in the technology that's available today, healthcare does just not move as fast as I would like it to move. And the harsh reality is the fax machine, these batch kind of manual operations are still a big part of how this industry functions. And, you got to meet clients where they are, right? We have big vision for where we think the industry should go. We're not going to be able to turn the Titanic on our own. So there's going to need to be a degree of patience, and I'm not always the most patient person. So I'd say that's probably, just the pace, the realities on the ground, and how these organizations move. That's just something that comes with the territory, but it's the one thing that I'd point to.
Well, thank you so much. So I want to thank you for appearing here today, and thank you for sharing your insights and your inspiring mission of Tenasol. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a spark of innovation today. Thank you so much, Teddy, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Susan. Have a great day.